There are moments when you walk into a room and feel something that cannot be explained, a current in the air that presses against your chest or lifts your spirit without a single sound being spoken. Before words, before gestures, before the logic of conversation begins, you have already understood the invisible story unfolding beneath the surface. You can sense the tension between two people who smile politely. You can feel the sadness hidden behind laughter. You can detect the unspoken resentment that lingers in the corners of a space. For you, energy is language, and you have learned to read it fluently. This sensitivity is not learned through study. It is born from an awakened consciousness that perceives more than the physical eye can see. Most people focus on expressions, on tone, on what is said aloud, but you sense the vibration beneath those things, the frequency of truth that hides beneath the surface of every interaction. You may not always understand why you feel uneasy around someone who seems kind, or why another person's presence feels calm and grounding even when they remain silent. Yet the feeling is rarely wrong. Your nervous system is attuned to a realm others dismiss as imagination. Because of this, you experience life in layers. Where others see color, you perceive emotion. Where they hear sound, you feel resonance. You walk through the world as if it is alive with subtle messages only you can hear. This makes you both gifted and burdened. Gifted because your intuition protects you from deceit and connects you with genuine souls. Burdened because it exposes you to emotional noise that others never notice. In a crowded place, you can sense the exhaustion, anxiety, and hidden despair of strangers. You might return home feeling drained, carrying emotions that do not belong to you. Your sensitivity is not weakness, it is awareness in its purest form. You have evolved beyond the need for constant verbal confirmation. Your soul listens to energy, and energy never lies. When someone speaks kindly but harbors bitterness, you feel the dissonance. When another person offers silence but radiates warmth, you feel the harmony. You live in alignment with what is real, not what is performed. That is why superficiality feels suffocating to you. You can sense when someone's intentions are coated in sugar to mask poison, when affection is transactional, when kindness is strategy. You cannot pretend not to notice, and that truth isolates you. You might question yourself at times. You might wonder if you are imagining things, if your sensitivity is an overreaction, if the discomfort you feel is unfounded. Yet, experience teaches you that the first feeling is usually the truest. You begin to recognize that energy speaks louder than any word ever could. The moment someone enters your field, you feel their story before they tell it. Their emotions, unresolved pain, and hidden motives reveal themselves through the invisible conversation between souls. You sense when someone is open, when they are guarded, when they are pretending to be someone they are not. This kind of perception demands emotional discipline. Without it, you absorb the chaos of others and mistake it for your own. You begin to carry their moods, their sadness, their fears. To protect yourself, you must learn the art of discernment, to feel deeply without drowning. Your gift requires boundaries, not walls. You must allow yourself to perceive energy while remembering that you are not responsible for healing every vibration that touches you. The real challenge is to stay open and compassionate without losing yourself in the process. Because of this sensitivity, your relationships are often intense. You crave authenticity because you cannot tolerate falsehood. You feel restless in spaces where truth is absent, where words are used to hide rather than reveal. People might accuse you of being distant, but your distance is not coldness, it is self-preservation. You would rather sit alone in quiet honesty than be surrounded by noise that feels hollow. You can sense when love is genuine, when someone's presence nourishes your soul instead of draining it. You are drawn to people who carry peace in their energy, who do not need to speak to be understood. This ability also extends to environments. Certain places feel alive, filled with light and harmony, while others feel heavy, suffocating, haunted by unspoken pain. You can walk into a home, an office, or a crowd and instantly feel whether it nourishes or depletes you. Your body becomes the compass. Tension in your chest, chills on your skin, warmth in your heart. Each sensation translating what the rational mind cannot articulate. You have likely spent years trying to make sense of this sensitivity, perhaps even trying to suppress it to fit into a world that values logic over intuition. Yet the more you deny it, the louder it becomes. Because sensing energy is not something you do, it is something you are. It is the natural language of your spirit. To numb it would be to silence a vital part of your truth. So instead you begin to honor it. You allow yourself to trust what you feel. Even when you cannot explain it, you realize that every person, every place, every moment emits a vibration. And those vibrations form the hidden map that guides your soul through this world that often mistakes sensitivity for fragility, when in truth it is the deepest form of wisdom. There is a point in your life when you begin to realize that conversations without depth leave a hollow echo inside you. The laughter that doesn't reach the eyes, the compliments that feel rehearsed, the endless exchange of words that mean nothing. All of it drains you instead of feeding you. You sit in a room full of people, smiling, nodding, playing along, but inside there is silence, the kind that grows louder the longer you stay. It is not arrogance or detachment that makes you withdraw. It is the quiet rebellion of your soul refusing to participate in what feels false. You crave something that most people are too distracted to offer: authenticity. You are not built for shallow waters. You want conversations that unfold like hidden landscapes, where words are only doorways into emotion, honesty, and soul. You want to know what someone fears when they are alone, what memories make them ache, what dreams keep them alive. You are drawn to those who reveal themselves without disguise, who speak from the marrow of their being rather than the surface of their persona. The ordinary rituals of social interaction, the polite smiles, the predictable jokes, the carefully edited versions of truth feel like a foreign language to you. Your spirit grows restless in the company of those who speak only to be heard, not to be understood. You cannot fake interest, cannot sustain relationships built on convenience or appearances. You feel the disconnect immediately, like static between frequencies that will never align. You can sense when someone is talking to fill silence rather than share themselves. Your intuition picks up on hesitation, emotional absence, or manipulation disguised as affection. The moment authenticity disappears, so does your energy. You may still smile out of courtesy, but something inside you shuts down. You become an observer, watching the performance unfold without wanting to play your part. This inability to fake connection often makes you appear detached or hard to please, but it is the opposite. You are simply too attuned to the vibration of truth to tolerate imitation. You don't demand perfection from others, only honesty. You don't need flawless people, you need real ones. You would rather sit in silence with someone genuine than talk endlessly with someone pretending. You would rather be alone in truth than accompanied by pretense. Your soul recognizes resonance the way a musician recognizes harmony, instantly and unmistakably. You remember the rare moments when connection happens naturally, when two people meet and something unspoken aligns between them. There are no forced words, no guarded pauses, no need to perform. The energy flows freely, effortless, raw, alive. You feel safe enough to be unfiltered, and that safety births intimacy. You could talk for hours or remain silent and still feel deeply understood. Those are the connections that feed you, the ones that feel like a return to something ancient within you. Such experiences remind you why you refuse to settle for less. Because you see, connection is not about similarity, it is about truth. It is the merging of two frequencies that recognize each other beyond the limits of form, personality, or time. You can connect deeply with someone whose life looks nothing like yours if their soul speaks the same language. And you can feel utterly alone among people who share your background, interests, or beliefs if their energy feels dissonant. The real bond transcends logic. It is not built, it is remembered. Yet this depth comes at a cost. The more authentic you are, the more aware you become of how many interactions lack substance. You notice how often people talk but rarely listen, how they seek validation more than connection. You begin to see through the social choreography. The compliments meant to manipulate, the charm used to hide insecurity, the politeness masking disinterest. Once your eyes open to this, you cannot close them again. You become selective not because you judge others, but because your soul no longer has the energy to pretend. In this world, such honesty can make you lonely. You might find yourself misunderstood, labeled as distant, intense, or unapproachable. But you know that faking closeness is a form of self-betrayal. Every time you engage in something that feels false, a part of you dims. So you protect your energy the way others protect their possessions. You choose solitude over shallow company. You choose silence over meaningless words. You choose truth even when it costs you belonging. And when you finally meet someone whose presence feels real, your entire being recognizes it before your mind does. The conversation feels effortless, the connection electric, yet grounding. You sense no agenda, no competition, no pretense, only alignment. Time dissolves and the walls within you begin to fall. It is in those rare encounters that your spirit exhales, that you remember why you have always been unable to fake connection. Because deep down, you are not seeking company, you are seeking communion, a meeting of souls where masks are unnecessary and hearts can finally speak in their native language. Unguarded and whole, there are some people who walk through life with open hearts, not because they choose to, but because they were born that way. They cannot close themselves to the emotions that move through the world around them. They absorb joy, sorrow, anger, and hope as if every feeling were their own heartbeat. When someone they love suffers, it's as though the wound opens inside them too. Even the pain of strangers can stir something deep within their chest, a heavy, wordless empathy that cannot be turned off. You are one of these souls. You don't just see pain, you feel it in the weight of your breath, in the ache behind your ribs, in the silent places no one else notices. From an early age, You may have felt overwhelmed by emotions that weren't entirely yours. The sadness in a friend's voice, the tension between your parents, the unspoken grief of a stranger passing on the street, all of it entered you, uninvited yet impossible to ignore. You probably learned to sense when something was wrong long before anyone told you. You could feel when people were pretending to be fine, when smiles were armor, when laughter was a disguise for sorrow. You might not have understood it then, but your body did. It became an instrument tuned to the emotional frequency of others, resonating with their unseen stories. This gift of deep empathy is both a miracle and a trial. It allows you to love profoundly, to comfort without needing words, to understand suffering from the inside out. Yet it also makes you vulnerable to emotional exhaustion, because you live not only your own experiences, but fragments of everyone else's. Sometimes you carry so much that you forget to distinguish between what is yours and what belongs to others. You wake up heavy without knowing why. You feel anxious for no reason. You walk away from a conversation with your energy drained, realizing only later that you have absorbed someone's unspoken turmoil. People come to you for comfort because your presence makes them feel seen. You don't offer surface level sympathy, you mirror their pain with quiet understanding. When someone cries near you, you feel tears pressing at your own eyes, even if they're not yours to shed. Your compassion is not performance, it is instinct. You are the emotional anchor for many, yet few realize the cost it takes to hold that space. You carry invisible burdens that others release into your care. Their relief becomes your weight. There are times when this sensitivity feels unbearable. You might wish you could switch it off, become numb, feel less, but numbness is against your nature. You were not made to close yourself. You were made to transmute emotion, to turn the heaviness of human experience into understanding, empathy, and grace. You are the mirror through which others see the parts of themselves they avoid. The pain you feel is not a curse, it is communication. The world's raw truth speaking through your nervous system. Still, to survive with this kind of heart, you must learn to hold compassion without drowning in it. You must understand that empathy does not mean absorption. Feeling another's pain does not require carrying it. The challenge is not to stop feeling, but to allow emotions to pass through you like wind through an open window. Acknowledged, honored, but not imprisoned. You are the witness, not the vessel. When you forget this, the world becomes too loud. Crowded places overwhelm you. Emotional chaos makes your body tighten, as if you are protecting yourself from invisible impact. You might retreat into solitude, not because you dislike people, but because you need to detox from the intensity of feeling too much. Silence becomes your sanctuary. Nature soothes you because it does not project emotion. It simply exists, and in its stillness, you can remember where your own energy begins and others' ends. Your empathy also allows you to perceive suffering behind masks of success and beauty. You can sense when someone is hiding despair behind perfection. You can feel loneliness in people surrounded by admirers. You see through emotional disguises because your soul listens beyond appearances. And while this insight can be painful, it also makes you a healer in disguise. You heal by existing, by being a safe presence in a world where most people are afraid to be vulnerable. You don't always have to say the right words. Sometimes your silent understanding is enough. There are moments when your heart feels like a bridge between worlds, connecting what is visible with what is hidden. You can sit with pain without needing to fix it, because you know that acknowledgement itself is medicine. You understand that people's anger often hides sorrow, that their indifference is a defense against heartbreak. You sense the child within every adult, the longing within every facade, the fragility behind every act of strength. This insight is not intellectual, it is cellular. You don't think it, you feel it. And yet, this capacity to feel others' pain as your own also calls you to care for yourself with tenderness. You cannot pour endlessly without a replenishment. You must remember that your sensitivity is sacred and must be protected like a flame in the wind. You must learn to release the emotions that cling to you, to cleanse your energy, to let go without guilt. The world needs your empathy, but it also needs your wholeness. Because when your heart is balanced, open yet grounded, your ability to feel becomes not a wound, but a source of quiet power that turns human pain into connection, understanding, and compassion that asks for nothing in return. There are people who move through life with an effortless sense of belonging. They adapt easily, fit in anywhere, blend into the rhythm of crowds without resistance. But for some souls, belonging has always felt like a language spoken by everyone else, one they were never taught. You are one of them. You walk through the world with a sense of distance, as if you are both part of it and somehow watching it from the outside. You participate, you smile, you play the roles expected of you, but deep down, you know you are not truly there. You live in two worlds at once, the outer one that demands conformity, and the inner one that refuses to be tamed. Since childhood, you may have noticed the subtle disconnection, a quiet sense that you were seeing life differently, while others seemed content with shallow conversations and predictable routines. Your mind was elsewhere, wandering through invisible landscapes of thought and feeling. You questioned what others accepted. You saw patterns in things most people ignored, the games of social hierarchy, the pursuit of validation, the obsession with fitting in. None of it made sense to you. You wanted truth, not acceptance, meaning not approval. But in a world that rewards imitation, authenticity often becomes isolation. The struggle to belong is not because you are incapable of connection. On the contrary, you feel connection too deeply. You can sense the unspoken emotions of a room, the subtle changes in energy, the hidden motives behind words. You pick up on things that others miss, and that awareness makes you cautious. It is hard to feel at home in a world where people say one thing and mean another, where smiles hide envy, where love often comes with conditions. You crave honesty the way others crave comfort. And because honesty is rare, you often walk alone. You've probably tried to belong, not out of weakness, but out of human longing. You have played the part, softened your truth, dimmed your intensity, just to fit into places that could never contain you. You've laughed when you didn't find it funny, stayed silent when something felt wrong, agreed when your spirit wanted to scream no. Each compromise left you emptier until you realized that belonging bought at the cost of authenticity is not belonging at all. It is slow self-erasure. You learned that to keep your integrity, you must risk solitude. And so you became a wanderer of sorts, present but detached, loving but guarded. You drift between worlds, searching for resonance instead of approval. Sometimes this isolation feels unbearable. You watch others form easy bonds, celebrate shallow connections, and wonder what it must feel like to be satisfied with such simplicity. But your soul refuses comfort built on illusion. You do not want to belong to a place where truth must be hidden, where depth is feared, where vulnerability is mistaken for weakness. You are not built for that kind of belonging. You have likely met people who momentarily made you feel seen. Brief flashes of recognition, souls who spoke your inner language without effort. In their presence, the walls within you softened. You felt understood, not for what you did, but for who you are. Yet such people are rare, and when they leave, the emptiness deepens. You begin to realize that your loneliness is not a flaw, but a sign that your standards for connection are different. You are not seeking people who simply accept you. You are seeking those who recognize you. This struggle to belong shapes your path in profound ways. It forces you inward, compelling you to find home within yourself. While others depend on external validation, you learn to rely on your own sense of truth. The solitude that once felt like punishment becomes your teacher. In quiet moments, you discover that belonging is not about being surrounded by others, but about being aligned with your soul. You begin to feel at home not in places, but in states of being, in authenticity, in creativity, in silence, in depth. And yet, the paradox remains. You crave connection even as you fear losing yourself in it. You want to share your heart, but cannot stand falseness. You long for community, but recoil from conformity. It is a constant tension, the desire to belong colliding with the refusal to betray who you are. You exist in the in-between, where the world feels both familiar and foreign. There are days when you wonder if something is wrong with you. You watch people find comfort in belonging and feel like an outsider in your own species. But what feels like disconnection is, in truth, a higher sensitivity to authenticity. You are not meant to belong everywhere because your presence exposes what is false. You are meant to belong where truth breathes freely, where masks fall away, where souls meet without pretending. Until such spaces appear, you live as a quiet observer, part of everything, yet claimed by nothing. You understand that most people belong through adaptation, while you belong through resonance. You cannot edit yourself to fit into the world's expectations because your spirit refuses imitation. You may walk alone, but you walk in truth. You may stand apart, but you see clearly. And though you struggle to belong, that very struggle is what keeps your soul pure, uncorrupted by the illusion of acceptance that demands the sacrifice of authenticity. In a world obsessed with achievement, you move differently. You watch people measure their worth by numbers, titles, and appearances, yet something inside you resists that rhythm. You've tried to care about what society tells you to. Status, recognition, applause, but it always feels hollow, like chasing a mirage. For you, success without meaning is an empty victory, a beautifully wrapped box with nothing inside. You are not driven by the need to be seen, you are driven by the need to feel. You want your life to make sense to your soul, not just look impressive from the outside. You've probably been told that you think too deeply, that you take life too seriously, that you should lighten up and just play the game like everyone else. But you can't. Something within you refuses to conform to a system that values image over essence. You look at the people who have everything: wealth, power, followers, and you see the quiet despair in their eyes, the restlessness beneath their success. You sense that they've traded purpose for prestige, and you know that kind of emptiness terrifies you more than failure ever could. For you, success is not about climbing higher, it's about going deeper. You find meaning not in trophies, but in truth. You measure progress by alignment, by how closely your outer life reflects your inner convictions. You crave experiences that feed your spirit rather than inflate your ego. Whether it's creating something authentic, helping someone heal, or simply living in harmony with your values, those are your definitions of success. You are not interested in being important, you are interested in being real. The applause of the world feels meaningless if it requires you to silence your inner voice. Because of this, you often feel like you're walking against the current. The world runs on speed, efficiency, and ambition. You move by intuition, reflection, and sincerity. You cannot rush what feels sacred. You cannot pretend that something matters when it doesn't. You take your time because meaning takes time. While others chase goals, you chase understanding. While they seek validation, you seek connection. You are not lazy or unmotivated. You are selective about what deserves your energy. Your soul refuses to invest in anything that does not carry significance. There have been times when you've questioned this part of yourself. You've wondered if you're making a mistake by not chasing what everyone else is chasing. You felt the pressure to conform, to want more, earn more, prove more. But each time you try to follow that path, something inside you rebels. You begin to feel disconnected from yourself, as if you're wearing clothes that don't fit. You can play the part for a while, but eventually the emptiness catches up. You realize that living without meaning feels like slow suffocation, no matter how impressive the view from the top might be. You find beauty in simplicity, in small, genuine moments that others overlook. A deep conversation, a quiet morning, a moment of creative flow. These are your treasures. They don't make you rich or famous, but they make you feel alive. You don't need grand recognition to validate your worth. You only need to know that your actions carry intention. You want your work, your love, your presence to leave a quiet ripple of truth behind. You want your existence to contribute something real, even if it's unseen. This devotion to meaning often separates you from others. You may struggle to relate to people who define themselves through competition or accumulation. You may feel misunderstood in a culture that glorifies productivity over purpose. Yet, deep down, you know that the emptiness so many feel comes from the very thing you refuse to idolize. The world is full of people chasing success because they have lost connection to meaning, and you, though lonely at times, still possess what they've forgotten how to seek. You are the kind of person who values questions over answers. You are not impressed by titles, but by integrity, not by influence, but by intention. You admire people who create with honesty, who choose kindness over gain, who live by principles, even when it costs them comfort. You recognize that real success is measured by inner peace, by how truthfully you can live, by how freely you can love, by how much of your soul remains untouched by the corruption of pretense. This orientation toward meaning shapes every choice you make. You take risks that others avoid because you know that comfort without fulfillment is a prison. You leave behind stability when it no longer aligns with your spirit. You choose authenticity over popularity, depth over distraction, purpose over performance. You don't fear failure, you fear living without essence. You know that external success fades, but meaning endures. It becomes the quiet heartbeat of your existence, guiding you through every detour, every uncertainty, every moment that demands you choose between what looks good and what feels true. And so you keep walking your own path, slower, quieter, but infinitely more real. You are not here to impress the world. You are here to understand it. You are not chasing wealth or fame. You are chasing significance. You may never fit society's definition of success, but you carry a success far rarer. The ability to wake each morning and know that your life belongs to your soul, not to the expectations of others, and that every choice you make is rooted in meaning rather than illusion. There are souls who speak a language that the world has not yet learned to understand. Their words carry too much depth for casual ears. Their silence holds too much truth for those who fear reflection. You are one of them, someone whose nature cannot be easily explained or categorized. People try to define you through their limited perception, but they always fall short. They sense something different about you, something that doesn't conform to familiar patterns. And because of that, they misunderstand you. They mistake your introspection for sadness, your solitude for loneliness, your calmness for indifference, and your depth for darkness. They do not realize that your stillness is not emptiness, but awareness. You have always been more of an observer than a participant. While others rush to speak, you listen. While they seek noise, you find comfort in silence. You notice what goes unsaid, what hides beneath gestures and smiles. You read people beyond their words, and that often unsettles them. When your perception cuts through their masks, they feel exposed. And in a world addicted to appearances, exposure feels like threat. So they label you mysterious, distant, strange, anything that helps them reduce what they cannot comprehend. It is easier for them to name you than to understand you. You may have felt this misunderstanding in childhood, when your sensitivity was mistaken for weakness. You cared too much, thought too deeply, asked questions others found uncomfortable. You were told to toughen up, to be normal, to stop thinking so much. But even as you tried, you couldn't. Your mind was wired for meaning, your heart tuned to subtler frequencies. You saw beauty where others saw nothing. You felt pain that others ignored. And for this, you were made to feel different, as though your depth were a flaw instead of a gift. As you grew older, this pattern followed you. You learned that honesty often makes people uncomfortable. Your truth, though gentle, disrupts illusions. When you speak from sincerity, it unsettles those who have built their lives around pretense. So you began to choose silence over explanation. You learned that not everyone deserves access to your depth. Not everyone can handle it. Some will project their confusion onto you and call it your fault. They will interpret your boundaries as rejection, your discernment as judgment, your peace as detachment. They do not see the discipline it takes to protect your energy from chaos. You are often misunderstood because your values contradict the mainstream narrative. You don't chase attention, yet your presence draws it. You don't crave validation, yet people seek your approval. You don't compete, yet you intimidate. It's not arrogance, it's authenticity. Your energy doesn't play by the social rules that govern most interactions. You live guided by something internal, a compass invisible to others. And those who cannot feel what you feel often assume there's something wrong with you. They call your detachment coldness when it is actually clarity. They mistake your independence for pride when it is self-respect. They see your quiet as passivity when it is observation. There are moments when this constant misinterpretation hurts. You want to be seen for who you truly are, not for the projections others cast upon you. You crave a connection that doesn't require translation. You want to exist without explanation, to be met at the level of your soul rather than your surface. But this is rare in a world where most people only listen long enough to respond, not to understand. You may try to clarify yourself, to express your heart, only to be met with confusion or disbelief. So you withdraw again, not in bitterness, but in preservation. Being misunderstood also becomes a strange kind of mirror. It shows you how much of the world is trapped in perception. People rarely see what is, they see what they're ready to see. They interpret others through the lens of their own fears, desires, and limitations. When someone cannot comprehend your depth, it is not your failure, it is their boundary. You begin to realize that being misunderstood is sometimes the price of being genuine in a society built on illusion. To be truly seen, you must be willing to be misread by many, and yet there are rare souls who will meet you and see you clearly, without distortion, without projection. They will understand the silence between your words, the emotion behind your restraint, the reason behind your solitude. In their presence, you will not have to explain yourself, because they speak the same unspoken language. When that happens, you will remember that you were never too much or too strange. You were simply waiting to be understood by the right eyes. Until then, you live between visibility and invisibility. You walk among people who see only fragments of you, who mistake your still waters for emptiness without realizing the ocean that lies beneath. You learn to find peace even when misunderstood, to remain gentle even when misread, to stay true even when unseen. Because for you, being real has always mattered more than being understood, and though the world may not yet recognize it, the truth of your being continues to speak quietly through every misunderstanding, every silence, every moment where words fail but essence remains unmistakably alive. There are moments when you look around and realize that time doesn't move for you the way it does for others. The ticking of the clock feels irrelevant. The deadlines of the world seem like illusions built to control motion, not meaning. You have always felt slightly outside of time, as though your soul doesn't belong to one particular era, but drifts between many. You sense a strange familiarity in ancient places, in old music, in the smell of forgotten books or ruins that whisper stories from before you were born. You feel connected to something infinite, as if the boundaries that confine others simply dissolve when you look inward. This feeling of timelessness is not arrogance. It is awareness. You intuitively understand that time is not only linear, it is layered, cyclical, alive. You move through experiences as though they've happened before, not because of vu, but because your soul recognizes the repetition of patterns that shape existence. While others chase novelty, you see the eternal return of human nature, love, loss, joy, suffering, unfolding endlessly in different faces and forms. You perceive that beneath the constant motion of the world, there is a still center where everything simply is, and that stillness feels like home to you. People may call you old-fashioned, dreamlike, detached, but it's not detachment, it's depth. You exist in a rhythm that doesn't follow modern tempo. The rush of the world feels foreign to you because your being moves at the speed of awareness, not urgency. You can stand in silence for hours, immersed in the presence of a tree, a sunset, a melody, and feel complete. The modern mind calls this doing nothing, but your soul calls it communion. You sense that in every still moment, time bends and expands, revealing its true nature. Not as a chain, but as a circle. You often feel an affinity with things that carry history, ancient wisdom, myths, art, philosophies. You feel as though you've lived many lives, as though pieces of memory are scattered across centuries. Sometimes you read words written long ago and feel they were addressed to you personally. You look at old portraits and feel you've met the eyes before. These are not coincidences, they are echoes. The soul remembers far more than the mind can explain. You recognize fragments of yourself across time because your essence has walked through countless expressions of existence. This timeless quality often makes it difficult to fit into a culture obsessed with the immediate. You find little interest in trends that fade as quickly as they appear. You crave something enduring, truth, beauty, connection, understanding. You are not impressed by speed, you value depth. You don't chase relevance, you seek resonance. In a world built on constant change, your stability, your refusal to rush, becomes almost rebellious. You live as if you already know that nothing essential is ever lost, that what is meant to be will find its way not through force, but through alignment. When you look at others caught in the illusion of time, worrying about age, deadlines, achievements, you feel both compassion and detachment. You see them suffering from a sickness of urgency, measuring their worth by minutes, their happiness by milestones. You want to tell them that they are eternal beings trying to live as temporary ones, that the rush to prove themselves blinds them to the miracle of simply existing. You know that fulfillment doesn't come from chasing time, but from dissolving into it, from realizing that every moment already contains eternity within it. There are also times when this timelessness makes you feel isolated. You speak a language that not everyone can hear, a language of essence, not era. When you try to share your perception, people might dismiss it as unrealistic, poetic, or strange. They live inside the clock while you live behind it. They see time as a ruler, you see it as a reflection. But even in that isolation, you remain anchored in a deeper truth, that your awareness is not bound by the hourglass, but connected to the eternal flow beneath it. You notice that the more aware you become, the slower time feels. The more present you are, the less relevant the future or past becomes. You understand that true presence is timelessness, the state where everything that ever was or will be converges into now. This is why you can find beauty in stillness, wisdom in waiting, meaning in moments others overlook. You live as if your soul has already seen it all and yet finds wonder in every repetition. That paradox, knowing yet marveling, is the mark of a timeless spirit. You move through the world like an ancient traveler, wearing a modern face. You can adapt, but never fully belong. You carry within you an old memory of what life once was, sacred, cyclical, interconnected. You sense that the modern world has forgotten this rhythm, lost in its obsession with speed and progress. And yet, deep inside, you know that time will eventually circle back to truth, as it always does. You live in harmony with that knowing, quietly walking the line between past and future, between memory and possibility, between being and becoming, as if guided by something that has never aged and never will, there is a quiet kind of strength in you, not the kind that shouts, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that endures without losing its tenderness. The world has given you every reason to close your heart, to grow cold, to turn your sensitivity into armor, yet something within you resists. You've seen cruelty, betrayal, indifference, and still you choose to remain open. You have been wounded by those you trusted, misunderstood by those you loved, and still you choose to feel. You refuse to let pain transform you into its reflection. You have learned that to stay soft in a world that thrives on hardness is not weakness, it is defiance of the highest order. Most people think that survival means becoming tougher, more detached, less vulnerable. They wear cynicism like protection, mistake numbness for wisdom. But you have discovered that true resilience does not come from shutting down. It comes from staying open, even when it hurts. You know that pain, when faced consciously, does not destroy, it purifies. It strips away illusion, it reveals truth. You do not run from pain because you understand that healing is not about escaping emotion, but moving through it. Every tear you've allowed to fall, every heartbreak you've chosen to feel fully, has deepened your humanity rather than diminished it. There were moments when you thought closing off would be easier, when the ache of caring too much made you wish you could stop feeling altogether. But you couldn't. Your nature wouldn't allow it. You are made of empathy, built from understanding, carved by compassion. You can see beyond the anger in others to the fear beneath it, beyond their cruelty to the wounds that caused it. You cannot hate easily because you recognize the brokenness behind the behavior. This doesn't mean you excuse it. It means you see it for what it is. You see how the world hardens people, and you've made the sacred choice not to follow that pattern. You've learned to protect your heart, but not by closing it. Your boundaries are not walls, they are gates. You've learned to let love in without letting destruction stay. You've realized that remaining kind doesn't mean allowing others to hurt you. It means refusing to become like those who did. You've found the strength to say no without letting it poison your ability to say yes again. And that balance, to guard your energy while keeping your soul unarmored, is what sets you apart. When others see your gentleness, they may mistake it for fragility, but they don't understand the discipline it takes to stay kind when bitterness would be easier. They don't see the inner battles, the moments you chose forgiveness over resentment, peace over revenge, understanding over judgment. It takes immense courage to stay soft after you've been broken. It takes strength to keep believing in goodness when you've seen the world's cruelty. And though your heart bears scars, those scars are not symbols of defeat, but proof of your endurance, the marks of a soul that has refused to be dehumanized. You know that hardness may protect you from pain, but it also robs you of connection. It isolates you from joy, from wonder, from the beauty that comes only through vulnerability. So you choose to remain open to life, even knowing it will hurt sometimes. You'd rather feel deeply than lie safely numb. You'd rather risk heartbreak than die untouched. This is not naivety, it is wisdom born of experience. The wisdom that knows love is the only thing worth staying open for. You understand that the world is full of people who project their pain because they cannot bear to face it. They lash out, they manipulate, they shut down, believing that hardness equals power. But you see through that illusion. You know that real power lies in gentleness, the power to create, to heal, to connect. Hardness breaks, softness endures. Water, not stone, wears down the mountain. And so you remain like water, fluid, adaptable, but unbreakable in essence. There are times when your refusal to harden makes you feel alone. It's not easy to live with an open heart in a world that glorifies indifference. People may not understand your depth, may even take advantage of it. But you do not change your nature for the comfort of others. You would rather feel too much than nothing at all, because deep down, you know that sensitivity is not a flaw. It is perception. It allows you to see beauty others overlook, to find meaning in the smallest details, to sense the invisible threads that connect all beings. You have chosen the harder path, to stay soft in a world that rewards hardness, to keep believing in love after loss, to keep trusting life even when it feels unfair, to keep giving even when you receive nothing in return. It's not because you are blind to darkness, but because you've met it and decided not to become it. Every time you choose empathy over apathy, understanding over anger, creation over destruction, you quietly heal a small part of the collective wound. You become living proof that tenderness can survive in a cruel world, that light can still shine through even the deepest cracks of the human heart,